are you on as well?
I am. Hello.
Hello. So thank you all for joining us. We're really excited that there's so much interest in the Fellows program, and we're glad that you could join us today. A few housekeeping things before we get started. All of you who are online have been looking at this screen for a while and hopefully have figured out how to shut off your video and your microphone. And we're just asking you to do that because there are so many people participating that it can get kind of crazy. And for those of you who may be calling in on the phone, I'm sorry about all of the silence because we just realized that you're not seeing the message that's up on the screen. So thank you all for joining us. We're going to present a whole bunch of information, and then at the end we'll welcome your questions. And when we do that, those of you who are online, please use the chat function. You should see a chat button on your screen, and you'll just hit that button. You'll be able to type in your questions. If any of you are calling in, you won't have that option, so we'll just figure out how to deal with that on the fly. You guys can jump in. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Maybe. Or maybe we won't. There we go. So I'm Megan Carney. I'm the program coordinator for the Sustainability Fellows program here at the Sustainability Institute. So I will be the main point of contact for the application process, and if you become a fellow, I'll be your kind of point of contact for keeping you in touch with the Fellows program. And Jen Andrews is also here. She is the director of the Fellows program and several other programs here at the Sustainability Institute at UNH. And Jen was actually the founder of the Fellows program about 10 years ago when it was at Clean Air, Cool Planet. And so since this is kind of Jen's baby, I'm gonna let her introduce the program to you in general and tell us a little bit about the program.
Thank you, Megan. Thanks for the introduction, and I just want to echo your thanks to everyone for being on the call with us this afternoon, this morning for some of us, this afternoon for others, and for your interest in the program and for your interest in sustainability in general, because so when I started this work, before starting the Fellows program, I sort of got my start in sustainability through an internship. I had no sense that this is what I wanted to be doing as a career. And I sort of stumbled into it, luckily, through an internship that was paid, and I was doing it because the work was probably going to be interesting, but the paycheck was good. So I'm a big believer in sort of experiential learning and internships, and I'm sure you all have been hearing, forever that, internships and experiential learning are important, but certainly for me, they've been important. And so it's a privilege and exciting to be able to hopefully bring those kinds of opportunities to others as well. So when we started the program, and we're going into our 10th year this year, the idea was, as the slide suggests, to pair students with partners to get good work done. Because what we were seeing and hearing was, on the one hand, at Clean Air, Cool Planet, which was a nonprofit that worked with businesses and local governments and nonprofits, from all of those partners and all of those sectors, we were hearing, oh, we have so much great work that we want to do and that we think would be impactful, but we just do not have the manpower, the hours in the day, the time and the energy and the expertise we need to dedicate to this great idea that we have, that if we just had a little bit of dedication, we could get it off the ground. So I'm hearing that all the time over here on one side, and on the other side I'm hearing from students and emerging professionals, I want to know how to get into this field, because as you all know, sustainability is a pretty new field. And so the sort of pathways into it are not so established as other fields. And so we saw a way to kind of solve both of those problems in a kind of mutually reinforcing fashion and have some great outcomes. And the ultimate goal then has been to help kind of build the profession from the ground up, support each other and supporting each other. And so that is kind of the ethos and the origin story of the Fellows program. And Megan, do you mind going to the next slide, please? Thank you. To that point about building a sustainability network, we feel like 10 years in, we're beginning to kind of see that happen, which is really exciting. It's exciting for us, and I think it's exciting for the fellows to be part of this network. So this is just a year, maybe 2 years ago now, we looked at where are all of our alumni from the program. Last year, we just cleared 100 alumni. So it's not as though we've had a ton of fellows every year. There's a ton of people in this network, but it's growing. And so we sort of mapped, okay, where geographically are they? What kind of work are they doing? And you can see from this slide that they're all over the U.S., and this doesn't include globally, but we do have some folks working globally as well, that there are some sort of clusters, and that if you look at sort of the places where they are working, which are the words on the slide, that, they really end up across sectors, but that they're doing sustainability work in those sectors in different places. And that's pretty exciting to us to see that impact and that network growing. And so that's something that we're excited to be able to offer you all potentially the opportunity to be a part of. One more slide, please. Thank you. So to that point, I think our goals for our fellows, and thus why we think you should apply if you haven't already, and why we think it would be rewarding for everyone to be part of the program, is that, first of all, we've designed the projects to be meaningful so that the work that is done at the end of the summer for each of these projects really does make a contribution to the organization or the initiative in which it is housed, in which it is hosted. So these are opportunities to make an impact on projects that are innovative. They're not all sort of canned. These are things that we don't necessarily know how to do, and that's one of the reasons for having a fellow work on it, because it requires someone really kind of thinking about it and problem solving over the summer, working with a ton of experts and mentors and whatnot. It's not as though people have to figure this stuff out on their own, but it's a chance to really kind of make something your own and make a difference. Certainly, there's a big sort of skill development aspect to this, and we're encouraging, we're looking for fellows who have a background, a particular expertise related to the project. So this gives them a chance to dig deeper into their fields and learn more and develop skills. And for many of the fellows, they're coming to the project or the placement sort of from outside, from somewhere else. So they often get to experience a sort of new community, whether that's literally a new town or city, or whether it's a new professional community or group of colleagues, or both. The sort of map from the last slide hopefully gives you a sense of a piece of the network that fellows will have a chance to connect with. And that's just our alumni. I mean, we have project hosts from over the past 10 years who are leaders and experts in the field. Hosting this program out of the University of New Hampshire, we have a ton of sort of expertise and leadership within the university around sustainability that we can connect fellows to, which is exciting. At the end of the summer, every fellow should have specific deliverables, whether it's a white paper or communications or presentations materials, research, whatever it is. There are sort of specific pieces of work, bodies of work that you will be able to have in your professional portfolio that you didn't have at the beginning of the summer. And then, of course, I think it, like I said before, is important that people are getting paid for their good work, and that we can all afford to get into this field and do this work while we're paying our bills. So, of course, there's a stipend associated with the fellowship as well. So that's my, I guess, sales pitch, if you will. And you can tell I'm pretty excited about this program. I hope you are too. I'm going to turn it back over to Megan to talk through some of the specifics for this year. And when we get through these slides, then we'll take your questions.
Well, thank you, Jen. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm inspired. I want to apply to the program. So hopefully Jen has inspired you all, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about kind of the nuts and bolts of the program, so you know how it works, and the nuts and bolts of how to apply for the program. So this year, hopefully you've all had a chance to look at the list of projects. We have 22 projects this year, which really span a wide range of topics and a wide range of organizations. But if you look at the group, there are some patterns. So we have a few projects that are kind of broadly based sustainability programs, looking at trying to grow sustainability programs in organizations and communities. Since this fellowship program actually started as a climate fellows program, we still have a lot of climate-based programs, and these run the gamut from science through to looking at climate change adaptation. But these are all kind of broadly based climate programs, and then we have a handful of specialized programs looking at specific topics like energy, food, water, waste, and health. These programs are all located in New England this year, and you'll see that about half of them are located at or nearby to UNH. So as a fellow, you'll be working at the location of your project. So we've got the New Hampshire ones, we've got a few in Boston, a few in central Massachusetts, and one in Providence, and one in Burlington, Vermont. So this is another thing you're going to want to think about when you're looking at trying to figure out which project you want to apply for. So speaking of applying for projects, some of you may have a specific interest in a specific topic like food. So if you look at the list, it's immediately narrowed down to a few projects for you. Others may be like me and they look at the list and they all look really exciting. So there are a lot of other things you want to think about when trying to choose your one or two projects that you're going to apply for. One thing is to think about what type of work it is. So while the topic may be interesting, you want to think about, are you the kind of person who likes to be out talking to people all day, in which case community organizing could be great for you? Or are you the kind of person who really gets a thrill out of finding a pattern in data, in which case one of the data analysis programs might be a better fit for you? And if you're the kind of person who can do both of those, then more power to you. Other things to think about are if you have goals to learn something in particular this year, then you want to look at a project that might provide that opportunity for you. Many people go into this wanting to gain experience in a different kind of an organization, like maybe you're interested in figuring out how city government works, or interested in sort of understanding the inside of how a large organization like a university functions and how to make change in a large organization. So those are other things to think about. Where do you want to live and work? Some of these places are big cities, some are small college towns. That might make a difference to some people. As you saw in the previous map, there are locations where there will be a whole bunch of fellows. So in those places, you'll have a built-in support system, which might be important to some people. Other people are happy to, jet off to their own location on their own, and that's your choice. Practical things to think about are living expenses. Some of these places are more or less expensive to live in, and transportation options. If you're going to be relying on public transit, you want to look at whether or not that's going to be an option in your location. And then finally, which should be obvious, each of these projects has a detailed project description, including the kind of background that is necessary to do the job. So please seek out the projects that you feel are a good fit for your background. Some more nuts and bolts, the schedule of the program. There's an orientation in Durham, New Hampshire from May 31st to June 2nd, and this is required. This is when you'll get to know the rest of the fellows. You'll have a chance to meet your supervisor and talk about your project plan. And we'll also have a series of professional development workshops to get you set up to have a successful summer. The program runs from June 5th to August 18th. And those of you who are really detailed people will have noticed that that's actually an 11-week period. And we're saying this is a 10-week program. That's because we've built in an extra week there. So if you want to be able to take off a few days over the summer, you can. Or also if your school schedule requires that you're back before August 18th, you have a little bit of leeway there. So you're required to work for 10 weeks on site where your supervisor is. And it is a full-time job. 40 hours a week. In a lot of places, when those 40 hours happen, it's going to be flexible, but it is full-time. We'll come together as a group with all of the fellows on a weekly basis. Those who are in New Hampshire might meet in person, but the rest will join in through a webinar like we are now. And then fellows will be required to give a midterm presentation on their project and a final presentation. It's still a little up in the air. The final presentation may be, we may have everybody come into New Hampshire, but obviously if you're not able to do that, you can come in online as well. So the full project term and the orientation are both required parts of the program. So if you have major scheduling issues with that, this may not be the year for you. That said, we do hope to offer this program every year. So if it doesn't work out for you this year, please come back. A little bit about travel and housing. People tend to have a lot of questions about this. So UNH will provide housing and food during the orientation in Durham. And we will also help to get you connected to other fellows prior to the program. So if you want to work with other fellows to find housing and or share rides, you'll be able to do that. But fellows are responsible for getting themselves to and from Durham for the orientation and to and from their site for the term of their fellowship during the summer. You cover your own housing and living expenses during the summer. That said, don't forget there's a $6,000 stipend associated with this, so hopefully that should help you out. Fellows will be able to rely on their supervisors to just help them out with local information, like where to look for housing and how to figure out the public transit system and that kind of thing. So let's talk about the application process. First, big news, we've extended the deadline to February 19th, so you'll have a couple extra days over the weekend. Just to make sure everybody's eligible, you do need to be an undergrad or graduate student from any college or university, and the program of study is not necessarily important in terms of applying for the program in general, but it should be somewhat in line with the project that you are applying for. Speaking of projects, as I said, you can apply for 1 or 2 projects only. Please do not apply for all 22 projects. We won't be able to handle your application if you do. So choose 1 or 2 projects. You should write a cover letter that's specific to each project. So if you're applying for 2, you can submit 2 cover letters. And really focus on how your background is a good fit for the project. It's great to show enthusiasm for the project, but we are all probably enthusiastic for the project. So show us how you are a good fit for the project based on what you've done in the past. And then we'll be asking you for a writing sample as well, which is just short, less than 2 pages. And the content is really not important. It's more important just to show that you're able to communicate, and particularly that you're able to communicate to an audience that's appropriate to the project. So if you're applying for a project that's about outreach to communities, you might want to submit a writing sample that reflects that you can communicate with regular people. If you're applying to a scientific research project, you might want to submit a scientific report, or I realize I'm kind of implying that scientists aren't regular people, but I live with one, so I feel like I'm allowed to say that. More about the application process. We're asking you to put all of your documents into one package. So if you look down at the lower bullet there, the components of your package should include your cover letter. If you're applying to 2 projects, you can have a second cover letter. Then your resume, your references with contact info, and your writing sample. If you put all that into one document, and then this is really important, please name your document with your last name, your first name, and the project keyword for the project you're applying for. So when you go into the application, you'll see there's a list of all the projects. You'll click on the button next to the ones you want to apply for, and at the end of each line, there is a word in parentheses, and that is your keyword. So you're going to put that right into your file name, and that will help your application get to the right place. So please try to pay attention to that. If you're applying to 2 projects, you can just put both keywords in your file name. So last name, first name, project 1, project 2. There is a $35 application fee, and that is set up as a second step of your application. So you input all of your information, you hit submit, and then another screen will come up where you pay the fee or put in the waiver code. So there's a waiver code for UNH students because this is an internal UNH program. Also, anyone can request a waiver code if the fee is going to present a financial hardship for them. So please just let us know. We don't want the fee to become a deterrent for anybody to be able to enter the program. So timeline. February 19th, the applications are now due. A few weeks after that, you should know whether or not you've been invited for an interview. So March 17th is our goal there. And then we're hoping to have all the fellows selected by April 14th. And as we discussed, the orientation is May 31st to June 2nd, and then the program runs through August 18th. And I feel like I just dumped a whole bunch of information on you, but I'm sure people have questions. So we're going to open it up to questions. I think that it would be helpful if we tried to focus on questions about the program in general first, because that's the kind of thing lots of people will want to hear about. And if we leave the application questions for after that, and then finally, if you have any questions about specific projects, let's leave that to the end. So with that, if you'd like to submit questions, find your chat button, which should probably be on the bottom of your screen. And you just click on that, and then you can type in your questions. Thank you. And Jen, while questions are coming in, if you want to add anything, feel free.
Thanks, Megan. I don't, but it looks like we've already got one. So as a graduate student who will graduate this May and continue PhD this September, do I need to apply? I don't actually know what OPT means, but as long as you are enrolled when you apply, like as of Sunday, you are eligible. So you should be, if the question is, are you eligible even though you graduated before you start the fellowship, the answer is yes.
And I have a feeling OPT may have something to do with a foreign student and a visa issue. And if that's the case, why don't you just get in touch with me via email and we'll see what we can figure out. Because I think OPT is something to do with a permission to work.
Okay.
It looks like we have another question. I'm interested to know if there's a specific type of major that you would like fellows to have. And the answer to that is, in general, no. People from all sorts of backgrounds are welcome to apply, but you should look at the specific project that you're interested in, and there will be requirements for the type of background they're looking for that project.
Cool. I've got one. I don't know if it went to everyone or not, but so the question from Talia: are fellows expected to be experts in their field when they're applying for a specific project? We may have had transferable experience that is applicable to the project, but perhaps we're not experts in that field. In general, the answer is no, probably not. I mean, the idea of this is that, it's an opportunity to gain expertise and experience. If you have transferable skills, that's important. That's the most important thing, and we'll take it into account. Each of the specific project descriptions, as Megan said, has like a 2-page PDF job description that goes with it, that is linked to from the project description page. So on that job description, on that 2-page PDF job description, the desired qualifications are listed. And so for a given project, it might say, deep familiarity with X required, in which case it means what it says. It might say, familiarity with climate change science or community engagement or whatever, beneficial but not required, in which case it means what it says. So it's a little bit project dependent. I mean, we're not looking for, if what people needed for these were consultants, they would hire consultants. So it's not as though you're expected to come in and know everything off the bat. But, there are sort of particular knowledge requirements given for any given project, and you're going to find those in the detailed 2-page PDF.
Okay, and thanks, Jen. Can you guys see my screen? I just pulled up the website. Jen, can you see
I
that?
can't see it yet. You might need to, when you do the
Hold on.
screen share, you might need to sort of.
Oh, there we go. Can we see it now?
Yep.
Okay. So I just want to point out, in case anybody had missed it, where you find those detailed job descriptions is by clicking on this little button right next to the title of the project. So if you go in there, there's a much more detailed description of the project. And then usually down at the bottom, there will be a list of qualifications that go with that project. So that's where you should be looking to figure out if this is the right project for you.
Thanks. So another question, will we be working with other fellows, or each fellow is posted to an individual organization? So in other words, are we working individually or as a team? The majority of these, it varies project to project. And so for some of them, off the top of my head, I would say there's one project where we literally are going to hire 2 fellows to work together on one project. That's the integrated solutions project. I don't remember what number it is off the top of my head. And actually, Megan, if you don't mind going back to the website and sharing your screen again, maybe it would be helpful for all of us to be able to look at that project.
Yep.
But that one is one where there will be a couple fellows working together on the same project. There are a number of other projects where there will be other fellows placed with the same host organization or in the same office, but they'll be working on something slightly different. So in that case, you're not working as a team per se, but you've got a sort of a kind of cohort where you're both potentially new to the organization, you're working together on sustainability stuff, you can kind of get to know the organization and the community together, which is kind of nice. And we do try to do that when we can. The other thing I would just say is that kind of going back to the map that Megan showed kind of early in the presentation, there are probably about half of the projects this year sort of ended up being placed with where people are sort of physically hosted within the University of New Hampshire Sustainability Institute, which is where Megan and I are and where we run the program out of. So there will be about half a dozen fellows who, though they're working on different projects, will all be kind of housed together, if you will, professionally speaking, at Sustainability Institute. So there's sort of a team aspect there. And then there will be probably another 4 or 5 fellows who aren't in the Sustainability Institute, but they're in other offices across the University of New Hampshire. And so, there's going to be more of a sort of group dynamic for those projects than for some of the other ones. Like, for example, there's one fellow working in Providence this summer, and so they'll be a little bit further afield. Yeah. Oh, thank you for putting that up. And you're welcome. And then another question, kind of going back to the list of projects. As you spoke a second ago, I was looking at the list of projects and saw that the project I'm most interested in does not have a PDF description attached to it. And that's because there are 2 of them for which we are still working on getting the detailed information. And so that will be up no later than Monday. In the meantime, I would be happy to have an individual conversation with folks about these projects. One of them is a zero waste project on campus working with our zero waste team. One of them is working with campus organizations broadly around sustainability data that various colleges and universities are reporting. And one of them is working on food policy and resources for food entrepreneurs and sort of local food providers in New Hampshire. So some of the details for those projects are still coming together, which is why those descriptions aren't up there, but they will be up there by the end of the weekend. And I apologize for the delay. Do people have any other questions? You're welcome, Laura. Okay, so Brendan, is it okay for the writing sample to be an excerpt from the larger paper we have written? Yes, absolutely. Again, content doesn't matter, and you definitely shouldn't feel compelled to write something new. for this. Again, as Megan said before, the goal is not to sort of see, it's not about what you've written, it's to sort of be able to gauge your ability to write well in a style that is suitable for the project or projects to which you're applying. You're welcome. Any other questions from anyone before we let you guys go?
I want to open it up because I previously kind of said we wanted to focus on the program in general, but if people have questions about the application process, like the writing sample, or any other questions about applying, go ahead and fire them to us.
It looks like Natalia had a follow-up question. Could we have 2 one-page samples if they're different? For example, technical versus outreach-based, especially if the position description is open-ended, and the answer is yes, absolutely. As noted before, we're going to ask you to just put all of this stuff together in one PDF. So you'll just have to make sure that the headings on the document sort of tell us that that's what you're doing, so that we know, because it's not as though it's going to be 4 different files, Oh, okay. All kinds of stuff going on chat. I'm trying to scroll up, and now I feel like I lost some.
Megan,
here,
I can get this one.
Okay.
Somebody's asking, they're a current undergraduate and they're going to be a graduate student in the fall. How do I indicate my student status? So I would indicate your status according to what it is right now while you're applying. So just say you're a senior in an undergraduate program, wherever you are.
Another one, does the academic sponsor or reference need to be from UNH? Do they need to be our graduate advisor? Could it be another professor or mentor? Could they be recently retired but still affiliated with UNH? Do you recommend a letter of recommendation from them? So that's a lot of related questions. To be clear, none of the projects require an academic sponsor or reference, although that will only strengthen your application if you're working with someone, if you have a faculty mentor or sponsor who, is doing work or can be a resource for you related to this project. We absolutely are interested in those partnerships, but we don't require them. So yes, if you had a graduate advisor or some other professor or academic mentor who, could be a resource for you in this work, that would be wonderful. A letter of recommendation from them would be extra wonderful. Neither is required. So, let's see what else.
On a related note, somebody asked, just to clarify, that references is just a list of references, not letters, and that is correct. Just references with their contact information, please.
And yes, a press release will definitely work as a writing sample. By all means. Is there any, I want to make sure that the folks on who are called in who can't use the chat function have a chance to ask questions if they have any. But it looks like whoever this is unmuted, so, or at least unmuted on our end. So I guess I would just say, if you're on the phone and you can't do a chat question, feel free to unmute yourself and pop in verbally now. Okay, here's a question about UNH students getting a waiver. And that's something that Megan can give you. Megan, is your contact information on the slide, or where is it?
Well, it's all over the website, but it's also on this last slide, I think. It's right there at the bottom. It's megan.carney@unh.edu.
All right.
Does anybody have questions about specific projects that haven't been answered yet?
Is there a limit to the cover letter? 1 to 2 pages, okay. 1 is preferable. If you can keep it to 1, that's great. But again, it can be 1 per project. So if you are applying for 2 different projects, I really urge you to write 2 different cover letters, because you should have a chance to tailor each one to the project and talk about your skills and experiences in relationship to those. So in that case, you'd have sort of 2 cover letters, ideally a page each. For the projects that require greenhouse gas inventories, do you need fellows with professional certification? If you had professional certification, that would get you super duper noticed. And there definitely are 1 or 2 of the greenhouse gas inventory projects. I'm thinking of the one in Northampton especially, where the more familiar, experienced, sort of the deeper your knowledge base, the better, because we're looking for someone to really improve upon their previous experience and their previous sort of methodologies. So, if you were sort of new to greenhouse gas inventories, I think that would be hard for you to do. So no, we don't require professional certification, but especially for that one, it would be stellar to have it. Mm-hmm. Other project-specific questions? The New Hampshire Sustainable Food Access has 2 objectives within the program. Not sure. Do you prefer application to be catered to 1 or both? So, well, both. I mean, we're going to be asking that fellow to do, but I'm trying to remember. So 1 was around, I should just pull it up. Yeah, I should just pull it up. Oh, thank you. Megan will just pull it up. Right. Oh, I remember. Okay. So that was sort of assessing the kind of viability, the outreach and the effectiveness of 2 different programs within the New Hampshire Food Bank. One is cooking, like a nutrition and healthy food, and sort of making, sort of planning for and using healthy local foods. The other is specifically a market match program that the food bank offers, where if you are get food assistance dollars, you can double what they're worth at the farmer's market. So those are 2 different programs that they offer. And for both of them, they would like an assessment of how well they're doing and some recommendations. So they're related, but yeah, they're 2 different programs that we're looking for you to assess. So for that one, I would say, yeah, the fellow would be working on both of those, assessments. So I think talking about experience with, or experience that would lend itself to doing a program assessment would be helpful in that respect. You're welcome. Other project questions? All right. Sounding and looking like we're good on the questions. Megan, did you have anything else you thought of you wanted to make sure people know before we wrap it up?
No, I just want to say thank you all for joining us today. And if you think of other questions, please feel free to email me. We have one more question. Hold on.
More info to come for the New Hampshire Food Alliance? Yeah. Oh, okay. Good. Couple questions. Great. So yes, more info to come for the New Hampshire Food Alliance. That project kind of came together after our sort of project deadlines. It's going to be a great project. But again, I expect that full project description will be online by Monday morning. So I would look for it then.
And somebody wants to know how quickly we can get back to them. I'm assuming you mean if you have a question, are you going to be able to get it answered quickly before you apply? And we will do our best, especially in the next few days, because we know you'll all be working on your applications. But if you send me an email at midnight, you probably will not get an answer until sometime the next day.
Seems fair. Oh, and to that point, we should just say, if anyone is going to be requesting the waiver code, write and request it early. Don't leave it until, Friday afternoon at 4:00, or God forbid, Sunday afternoon at 4:00. Just write so that you have it, and that way you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, and that's a good point. If you're planning on doing your application next weekend, you may not necessarily get answers. So think about the application now and make sure to get your questions out now.
That's a great question. Are these strictly fellowship options, or are there possibility for career opportunities with these entities? So yes and yes. This program is just the 10-week, fellowship. We're not, there's no commitment or promise or expectation or implication of a job offer past that. However, we have had fellows who have stayed on with their, sort of host placements, or, gone back to school for a semester and then gone to work for their host placements. So that is definitely a big potential benefit of doing this, and there's precedent for it. And then we've had fellows who have said, I'm thinking of 2 people last year, for example, who said, I, made the contact I needed, or the contacts I needed, or I learned about my current job by virtue of doing my fellowship, or I got my current job by virtue of the work I did in my fellowship. So that definitely happens. You're welcome, Renee. We're just leaving it open just in case anybody thinks of anything else last minute. But it's 12:50, so, and you guys know where to find us, so probably we're good to wrap it up. So thank you all again for making the time to be part of this conversation and for your interest in the program. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have further questions. Thank you. I'm glad this was helpful, and appreciate you, making the time to get all your questions answered in this structured way instead of 10 emails after the fact. So, all right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your Friday and a great weekend. And we'll look forward to seeing all of your applications for the Fellows Program by the deadline, February 19th. Be well.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
We're signing off. Bye-bye.